What's up, y'all? Welcome back to The Raging Atheist. I'm your boy Nakasuchi, and for about the last 10 years, thanks a lot to the History Channel, aliens have been all the rage. And I really want to talk about the ancient astronaut theory. Now, it was in 1968, I believe, that Erich von Däniken released his best-selling book, Chariots of the Gods, that asked a lot of important questions, I believe. Questions that should be asked. Now, I'm not saying that the answers have been found to these questions, but I am saying that the scenarios that he laid out do bear room for logical thought. And I've been fascinated with this pretty much since I've read Chariots of the Gods, way before History Channel ever started doing their series on the subject. And while I do appreciate the History Channel's attempt to cover this series, I want to take a real look at it on my channel, and that's going to require time. But first, with this video, I just want to do a general overview and tell you guys if I subscribe to this or not.
I don't give a shit.
And quite honestly, I just don't know if I subscribe to it or not. I think it's a good idea, and I think it's something that I really like to think about, and I think that it does make a lot of logical sense. But I also think that science needs to prove it. Like, you know, and I think science is trying to, and if they do, then I'll be behind it 100%. But I want to think about it on a philosophy level with this first video. I want to think about it, is this a possibility? And I'm going to be quite honest with you. I think that this is a far greater possibility than, say, Yahweh and Jesus and Allah and all these other things that make no logical sense at all. You know, my whole life I was raised into the Christian tradition, but even with that, I went to public schooling. So even as a child, though, you know, the evangelicals had a lot more leeway back then, and they were actually teaching differently back then than they are now, I was still raised with this idea that everything was myths except for the Christianity that I grew up with. So, you know, when we talked about ancient Rome and their gods, from a very young age, I was told that that was myth. Those were stories. You know, they didn't really happen. It's all myth. But then when you become an adult, if that just doesn't really sit well with you and you actually study it, you find out that that's not quite true.
What you talking about, Will?
You find out that actually that's a technique just to justify the myths that they believe in. You know, if you study history, those weren't myths to the actual people of those times. If you study the writings from the people of those times, those gods were very real. That mountain Olympus was very real. And guess what? Sometimes that Mount Olympus was there and other times it weren't. Sometimes those gods were there, other times they weren't. And I'm not even getting into, you know, like the evidence that has been found. I'm just talking on a philosophical level here. Just put your rational mind to it. Put yourself back then and ask yourself, why would all of these people from Rome speak about this in a way that it was real if it was just a bunch of stories? And I know what you're going to say, well, Nakasuchi, that could be said about the Bible. You know, and exactly. You know, if you notice what I speak about the Bible, and you'll really get it once we get into the Gospels that I'm reading right now, and we're doing it 2 chapters at a time, so it's going to be very slow, but you're going to get this from me. I actually believe a lot of what the Bible says. I do. I mean, it's a very common misconception that because I'm an atheist and because I bash the Christian religion, that I don't actually believe what the Bible's saying. I think I possibly believe it more than a Christian does. You know, one of the things you're going to see as we're going through the Bible on my channel as I'm reading through it, and hopefully more of you will start watching it, is that if you apply modern terminology to the Bible, it makes a lot of sense. If you take away the fantastical stories that make no sense and then apply some modern technology to the Bible, modern terminology to the Bible, then it starts to make a lot more sense than what it makes reading it as is. You know, reading it as a primitive wrote it. That just doesn't make logical sense to me. We have a better understanding now than our ancestors did back in the day. We have words for things now that they might not have had back in the day, like UFOs, like aliens. To them, they didn't have those words. Those would literally be higher intelligence from the heavens. Those would literally be gods. And it's not just the New Testament that can be interpreted that way. There's actual stories that speak about alien intervention in the Old Testament, in the Torah. You know, when the Bible speaks of Ezekiel, well, that can be translated using modern terminology to easily relay a UFO sighting, a UFO abduction. The same can be said with Enoch. Well, who is Enoch? Enoch was mentioned twice in the Old Testament of the Bible. But 600 years ago, a book was found that actually describes the life of Enoch in the first person. Now, there's no way to know if Enoch himself actually wrote this book, but it is a book about that Enoch. And in this book, when Enoch was a young child, he was abducted by aliens. That is very obvious. And if you replace words like God with alien, the Bible becomes a science fiction novel.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise.
And throughout this series, we'll get into all of that, I promise you. We'll get into Enoch, we'll get into Ezekiel, we'll get into all the different references from the different religions that could be interpreted using modern terminology to be UFO sightings. We'll get into the mysteries of the world like Nazca and all these places in the world to where now if we fly over them with our airplanes, it makes perfect sense and we see these things that they shouldn't have been able to make as a land-based humanity. A humanity that's never flown. Yet they did. And you can put that to human ingenuity, or you could put that to divine intervention, which a lot of Christians would like to put that to divine intervention, but then to define divine intervention. Intervention from the heavens? Intervention from a higher intelligence? Intervention from an alien? It is undeniable, it is history, that at some point in the Sumerian Empire, a race of higher intelligent beings from the heavens came and ruled that empire. It is spoken of in their histories. We have discovered this. These race of beings were called the Anunnaki. Now, the Anunnaki claim to have come from some distant planet further out in our own galaxy. I think that was deception. I think that they possibly came from Mars, or they possibly came from another part of the galaxy, another solar system. But the Anunnaki did come, and they did set themselves up as gods in Sumeria. And for a long time, we thought Sumeria was the first empire of humanity. And you know, we've have texts from India from 6,000 years ago that actually speak about spaceships in the skies and great battles in the stars. But we always put that off as myth. It's hard to put that off as myth now when we are actually capable of doing those things. You can't put that off. That's not myth anymore when we have actually made it a reality. So if we can do it, why wasn't it done before? Well, because they were primitive, but they were describing very advanced technologies. And we've also discovered, science has discovered, that life didn't start on Earth. Our life as we know it, humanity, came from the stars. Well, how did they prove that? I don't fucking know. That's just a thing they say, and they must have some evidence. I'll look into that in this series too.
Say what?
So in summation, I just don't know if I really subscribe to the ancient astronaut theory. I think I might. We'll see where the research leads us. We'll see where this series leads me as a person. And we'll see what you guys think about it. Do you guys think it makes sense? Do you think it makes more sense than, say, Yahweh or Allah or any other deity? I mean, and doesn't it make more sense to actually believe in these deities as biological creatures that might have been here and left? Creatures that might return once again? Shouldn't we be prepared for that if that's a possibility? Right now, we think of ourselves as fairly advanced, but if another species is getting here from another planet or another solar system from our galaxy, we ain't shit to them. And I generally try not to subscribe to conspiracy theory without some form of fact behind it. But if you actually look into the conspiracy theories, some of these make a lot of sense. There has been an uptick in UFO sightings since America dropped the atomic bomb in World War II. The conspiracy theory is that this event caused these gods to return. And they were very worried about our ability to use such a weapon. And the conspiracy theory is that our government and other major governments of the world have struck a bargain with 3 different races of alien beings. I don't subscribe to this at all, but I don't put it past our government, and without proof, either for or against, I can't say shit. And I shouldn't really say that I don't subscribe to that at all, because the numbers do show, since we dropped the atom bomb, there has been a shit ton of UFO sightings all across the world. That can't be denied. Or, since we dropped that bomb, since these UFO sightings have began, since Roswell happened, it cannot be denied that this world has come pretty goddamn far when it comes to science and technology. So I just really don't know if I subscribe to this theory yet. I think I might. That's the best answer I could give you guys now. And like I said, we'll see where this research leads us. Now, I'm not unfamiliar with this research. I have an idea where I'm going to go with it. I have watched the series on the History Channel. I have read the books. So I do have an idea of where I want to go with it. But I've never really stapled down if this is what I think was real or not. And I don't even know if I'll be able to do that researching it more in depth. I hope so. Because I'm the type of person that wants to fucking know. But as always, I'm your boy Nakasuchi. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hit that thumbs up if you like my video. Subscribe to my channel. Share me on your social media. I'll see you soon.